Are we ready to start, or should we wait a couple more minutes?
Nope, you're ready. You can go ahead.
Fantastic. Well, I am so happy to be here. I'm Jennifer Braunschweiger. I am head of content marketing at Shutterstock, which is the creative solutions platform. And the way that we think about content marketing there is that we're all about offering creative guidance in a changing world. So how do we help you make what you need to make? And as we look in that and as we dive deep into that, we're helping people across industries, and we're helping people tackle issues of visual representation for whatever they do. And that means that we have an incredible appetite for all sorts of insights that are coming at us from all kinds of different industries, which makes it particularly interesting to sit here with Aynat Ravin, who runs NLive at Marriott, all about the exciting stuff that she has and her team have been working on in the last couple of years. And so very glad to have this conversation with you, and let's jump right in. So first, can you explain a little bit about your background and what you do?
Sure. So my background has been a bit meandering. I've learned through life that I tend to be a bit of a generalist. I love to continuously learn, whether it's industries or skills or leadership. And you'll hear that reflected in the path that I've taken. So I started off post-college at Accenture. Great foundation in terms of just professional skills, presentation, facilitation, overall business acumen. First time I was able to lead a team in a professional setting, as well as getting the consulting and client relationship. So after doing that for a few years with the federal government, I decided to continue learning and went to Columbia for a business school, where I expanded my business experience, knowledge, leadership, whether it be like leading small business consulting programs or working Columbia Women in Business, developed an extensive network of folks who I'm proud to call friends that have been really helpful both personally and professionally. So after leaving B School, I then moved on to American Express in New York, where Amex is just known for allowing you to continue to move and grow. And so I took full advantage of that. I started off focusing on improving the digital consumer user experience. So what our consumers were doing on Amex.com. I then pivoted over more to the consumer ops side. So kind of sneaking a peek behind the scenes from a customer service perspective and the intricacies of cross-selling, which was really good foundation and one of the toughest jobs I've ever seen to work in customer service. So hats off to them. I then decided that I was interested in learning about more of the kind of the B2B to C side. So I pivoted over to membership rewards and the loyalty side of the house, which was exciting in that I was focused on retail gift card partnerships and had the opportunity to launch First Collection, which at the time was the ability to give our Platinum and Centurion card members really exclusive opportunities to cash in their points, to redeem their points. So I launched Tiffany & Co. I also worked with Williams-Sonoma and others. So really fun, interesting way to kind of get a sneak peek at the retail industry. As life would have it, I then pivoted over to Marriott. Travel is my personal passion. So you've got to imagine the past year and a half has been a little rough, but I still love it and adore it. And I've been doing it any way, shape, or form. So when I transitioned to Marriott, I kept with the partnerships path. And what's interesting about that is there are kind of two sides of the coin, right? So there's the financial services side of the house, which is where I was living from the Amex. But then there's the merchant side of the house. So from the business or the company. And I was transitioning over to the business side of the house, where I managed relationships with the NFL, Amex, so some of my old colleagues, Hertz, Visa, and HBO. I did some huge contract negotiations, huge deals there. So really enjoyed learning that skill set. And then after having done that for a while, I said, you know what, let's keep learning. I then transitioned over to social media listening, very logical transition from, retail partnerships to financial to what about tech partnerships next? So built that skill set, worked with those technology companies, and I parlayed that into MLive. So I'm going to pause here as to what is MLive. MLive is Marriott's real-time command center. We have hubs around the globe. So in London, we support Europe, Middle East, and Africa. In Hong Kong, we have Asia Pacific. Outside of Miami, we support Caribbean and Latin America. And Marriott's located in Bethesda, right outside Washington, D.C. And what we're really focused on is keeping the real-time pulse via social of what are guests, what are our customers, what are they saying? It's really, interesting. It's critical nowadays to really have that pulse and understanding. And to give you a bird's eye view as to the different types of initiatives that we're focused on, social listening, really the bad, the worst, and the ugly, what's being said about us so that we can kind of keep a pulse from a reputation brand management, peppered in with some really nice, good things, which we always appreciate hearing. One thing I was lucky enough to launch, pre-COVID, was Surprise and Delights. So essentially what we did is we took our social listening and we leveraged it to identify micro influencers. So think our guests who are on property, who are posting on social, we reached out to them and said, hey, any interest in doing Marriott Bonvoy tours and activities? So what does that mean? That could be zip lining in Costa Rica. That could be taking ATVs in the desert. And you know what? They loved it, right? Because who wouldn't love to be able to do one of these really cool tours and activities? They posted a ton, which we were happy to see, not something that we asked for, and really garnered like tremendous return on engagement and won us a Shorty Award, which is really the creme de la creme of social media. So something we were so proud of.
I love this. There's so, thank you for all that. There's so much in there. I'm completely fascinated by how different your background is from mine. And I love, that's what's so great about an event like this is that you get a bunch of people in the room who are coming from different places. So, so interesting to hear about how you got there, and also completely fascinated by MLive, which sounds incredibly cool. So you're basically in a command center, listening to what people are saying about Marriott and able to respond, and then also able to capitalize and sort of accelerate the great stuff by, picking up on that and pushing that out too. Is that kind of the right way to understand it?
Yeah, we very much partner with, we don't own any of our own social channels. So we would partner with Marriott Bonvoy to make sure they were doing the outreach. We were doing the outreach, but kind of in partnership in tandem with them. And hopefully, garnering some interesting UGC that could then be leveraged on our social channels in the future.
I love it. That sounds great. And, leads me really to the next question, which is we're here talking with brand innovators. And so, what does innovation look like? I think what you just described is a pretty great example of innovation, but how do you think about that term now?
Yep. So I would say now is a pretty operative term. So as we're all living through this new and different world with COVID having impacted the world and particularly having an impact around the hospitality industry. So what Marriott's done has been really smart and really clever. We really are looking to meet our guests where they're at. So especially early on when you didn't have as much flexibility to go and explore and travel how you might like and what we might love. We developed things such as the Play Pass, Stay Pass, and Day Pass. So you're sitting at home with your roommates, your family, alone, basically going a little bit crazy there. And you're like, I just need to get out. So an interesting concept we're finding is bleisure. Leisure is the mixing of business and leisure, which really gives you the opportunity to work from anywhere, right? For those of us who are, able to work remotely, that means that your weekend doesn't necessarily start at Friday and end on Sunday anymore. Perhaps you go and take it somewhere else. So knowing that folks had more flexibility than normal, Marriott launched the Play Pass, Stay Pass, and Day Pass. And that essentially allowed you to go perhaps book a room to go work from, so to get some personal space during the day, take calls, do whatever you wanted to, and just get a different vibe, different atmosphere. Now, if you wanted to spend the night and perhaps go out, explore the local area, add on another work day or another fun day, then we had, essentially a stay pass. And now if you have family in tow and everybody needs a change of pace, but perhaps the parentals actually have to get some work done, we offered something that would, perhaps entertain your kids while you're working and things like that. So really interesting and clever way to kind of capitalize. You might not be taking at the time, far flights, but you still wanted that local experience. And Marriott also did this with regards to partnerships. So Marriott partnered with Uber, right? So you oftentimes found yourself sick of cooking and making your sourdough bread, and you just wanted something different. And so we partnered with Uber, whether it be taking an Uber or Uber Eats, where lots of people were ordering in, and allowed you an opportunity to earn and redeem your Marriott Bonvoy points. So really clever way, again, to meet our guests where they're comfortable at and what they feel like doing at that time.
So what I'm hearing you say, or, if I could sort of put that in a little capsule, would be innovation is about connecting your strengths as a company to the moment in the world right now in a creative way. Because that's sort of what seems to connect for me. What you're describing Marriott did was Marriott understood what people loved about it and what it did well, and was able to creatively make that relevant to, today, the moment right now. Is that, do you agree with that? Is that how you would sum it up then?
Yep. No, that's perfect.
Okay, great. Because I think there's a lesson there for all of us is really, it's more complicated than it sounds, because first it requires really understanding what you're good at and what your customer loves you for, and then being creative about how to apply that to a situation as outlandish as the one we're currently in.
So true.
So the other part of what we're talking about right now is about being a woman in marketing. So this is my cat, excuse me. And I think about that all the time, like, in the conversation right now, socially around leadership, what does it mean to you to be a senior level woman leader?
So I inherently feel the need to give back. And for me, the best way to give back is with regards to mentoring. It's something that I find very fulfilling, and hopefully others find really productive and useful. And I focus on this both at work and outside of work. So I've been known to have conversations with folks on my team who have been in meetings and let others take credit and introduce themselves. And as the women on the team just sat quietly, and I provided them like real-time constructive feedback of, nope, that's not how it's going to go. You're going to speak up. You're going to say all the great work you're doing and take credit for it, because this is your opportunity to shine. And we shouldn't be essentially bequeathing that to someone else for that. And of course, a polite and appropriate way. I've also mentored folks both on my team and other teams as they look to make career transitions, both internally within the company or externally as it relates to COVID. And so I might be doing the late night resume review for you, or helping you prep for your job interview, explaining what is appropriate and not appropriate for like what to wear for a job, and kind of coaching the folks who might be a little bit more junior, having had done this so much in the past. I also, through my association with Columbia, am a mentor with the business school. And I was lucky enough to have this past year, this extraordinarily talented woman who was looking to make a career transition. She didn't know within the company or another company. She just knew she wanted something different. She wanted to learn a new function. She wasn't sure what. So having gone through a lot of changes and different explorations myself, we did, some long brainstorming sessions. She was beyond thoroughly prepared. And once we kind of narrowed in on a few, I opened up my LinkedIn network to her, found a few folks who were in those spot on industries and functions, and said, here you go. Made the intros. She did all the hard work, kind of really refined her thoughts, interviewed for a job, and then got the area. And what's even cooler about it is we've been doing this virtually the whole year. She actually was abroad. She came back and we got to meet up finally. And it was just so rewarding to like meet this person who I was able to kind of coach through, who had it in her the whole time, and for her to kind of really make a mark on what's next in her career.
That's a great story. I love that. Did you have someone in your life who, or in your professional career, who helped you? Like, did you learn by example, or did you learn from an absence of examples?
As it won't surprise you, I would say a hodgepodge for me. At Amex, I had an official mentor who, to this day, her words just harken back to things that I should keep in mind, things that folks probably are aware of, but at the time was like mind blowing. I was looking for at Amex to change jobs all the time. And so I brought her a couple job descriptions and I said to her, I was like, but I don't have these skills or these qualifications. And she's like, enough, you're fine. You have enough of these. You know, no man would say that they didn't have enough of these. Like, you're good to go and you're going to go in and you bring to the table what you have. And you're going to make your mark. And she was right. I did get those roles. It also helped open my eyes that, you know, don't cut yourself off, you know, give yourself more opportunities. And then I've done informal mentors. I have, you know, old bosses and even peers who serve as amazing sounding boards as I kind of meander through life, trying to figure out what's next, and really provide some really great context.
Well, your what appears to be your professional strategy of chasing new things to learn seems incredible. So I think that's already useful. You know, to that point around learning, one thing I have observed over my career, which I think is not unusual, is that the pace of change has really just accelerated. So, you know, you mentioned about Amex, that people moved roles all the time. In your career, you have obviously moved a lot of roles, but even within those roles, I think the pace with which we're expected to move, I mean, your job involves social listening, which changes every, you know, millisecond. What's your advice for surviving that pace of change?
So it's a lot of what I've been sharing. It's about adaptability, upskilling, willing to learn and grow your skills, and being open to change. So in my career, I've had new leadership that's come in that has, you know, turned things on a dime. I had a team member of mine who left the company, and on 2 days' notice, I inherited his whole team and all of his work that he was doing. And so I was like, okay, cool. This could be completely overwhelming, or this could be really exciting. I got to know these new team members, understand what they're working on, really spent the time listening as opposed to talking, and then saw how I could insert myself to help the process or remove obstacles. And that was really key. I mean, the fact is, COVID has upended everything. You have to be nimble. You have to be able to, you know, turn on a dime. Marriott merged with Starwood just a few years ago, you know, going from 19 brands to 30 brands. So I would say, just as a whole, just riding the wave is probably your best bet.
Yeah, that's great. And I've started sending the surfer emoji on Slack all the time. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because that is my new favorite Slack emoji. I just send the surfing, you know. And I think also what you're saying is that you have a super positive attitude about it, which is like, this is how it is. And so what can you learn about it, and how, or learn from it, and how can you turn it into an opportunity? And I think that is great advice for anybody, myself completely included. So to change direction, you know, sitting in marketing, I am constantly asked by the business side of the house and the data-oriented people with whom I work and to whom I report about measuring success. You know, what are the metrics that you're applying to your work with MLive, and how do you think about those metrics? And you know, I'm really interested in your business school background. Did that help? Like, how are you translating that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so MLive, we've really been given the free reign in terms of, like, you know, fail fast, take risks, learn what you do, and continue to pivot. MLive's historically at the top of the funnel. So we're driving awareness, which is historically really challenging to measure. So we've been focusing on like high level quantitative metrics. So it was perhaps more volume based. So the volume of surprise and delights, or the alerts around reputation brand management, or the number of activations that we've had. I think to have external validation, like winning the Con Lion Award and the Shorty Awards and the Smarties Awards, for sure helps our cause as to what we're doing and why we're doing it. But it's less about like the click-through rates and more traditional metrics, because that's just not where we're able to kind of play in terms of our metrics tracking. And, from my business school background, I love math and I love numbers. So any way I can figure out to show, an upward trend or quantify this, I do. But then, at some point, the folks on my team are like, enough is enough. Let's work with what we got.
Yeah, I always want the lines to go up and to the right, but the lines don't always cooperate. I mean, and also, note to self, win some awards. I think that that one goes a long way too. So congratulations on those. And then a question, from where I sit specifically, obviously, and this is connected to the pace of change, there's more and more and more content out there at all times. So there's just a tidal wave of it, which even my surfer Slack emoji can't quite keep up with. And, so how do you think about standing out in a crowded space?
So we're also in a unique space in that, limited budget, limited resources, especially now. So what we could do pre-COVID is not something that we're going to be doing currently, but we're still blessed to have the opportunity to do some great things. So, for example, pre-COVID, we might have been doing brand specific campaigns. Currently, we're really focused on portfolio campaigns. So from the Marriott Bonvoy level. So as opposed to, calling out, individually all of our 30 brands, how can we roll this up? It's also a great way to garner awareness of our portfolio as a whole. So recently we launched Travel Makes Us. That's a broad campaign that we're offering, and kind of really to inspire folks to travel again. We're, in a different place. This is exciting. If you're comfortable, come and enjoy all there is to offer by learning from this world. We also infused social into this marketing campaign. So allowing folks to, share their UGC, submit their travel videos, tag, Travel Makes Us and things like that. So they're also joining the conversation, which, after the last presentation talking all about TikTok, like this is what folks are doing. They have more time on their hands. They want to create the content and they want to be a part of it. So that's where we've been focused on early on in COVID, knowing that folks were very, very limited as to where they could travel. We kind of did it differently. So knowing that, Wanderlust was top of mind, we launched a campaign, Dear Travel. So Dear Travel was your ability to share on social your love letter to travel, right? So everything that you were missing. And I mean, the list of things that I could write of places I was dying, the trip to Northern Ireland and Dublin, I canceled for April 2020. And, or maybe just your favorite beach at the time that you couldn't go to. So it was a nice way to kind of plug in, again, what you were saying in terms of the relevance and the timing and kind of speak with it. So being nimble and creative and just dealing with where we're at the time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're talking about very top of funnel stuff, particularly as you're talking about portfolio level. And that's where my question about measurement came from. I completely agree with you. And yet that's also where I hit that measurement question. So in my job, at least, I find it a real back and forth between standing out by speaking in creative ways to, the real needs of your customer, and then also being able to measure that concretely is, the tightrope that I feel like I am on. Does that resonate for you as well, or not so much from where you sit?
So at Marriott, there are lots of folks who are creating and managing the marketing campaigns and developing it. So it really depends on who's owning it and who's creating it in terms of what the metrics tracking,
That makes sense.
what the KPIs would be for that.
That's great. So again, like if obviously, we have all been through enormous changes in the last couple of years. Is there anything that, you want to share about sort of as you look back on the last couple of years that you have learned that is helping you do your job better or differently?
Yeah. So looking just back on the past 2 years, for me, it's really been about resilience, flexibilities, and the importance of strong relationships. So early on in COVID, I was one of only a few who were retained for the marketing team at Marriott. I felt very blessed, but also very sad. It was, a challenging time. So we were very lean. There were very few folks able to do the work. So you learn to be really scrappy. You learn to embody the concept of a team player and wearing many different hats, because you had to be, and you had to catch whatever was thrown at you and kind of just continue to juggle. And very much harkens to relationships, right? So I got to know folks I didn't know that well, and also understand they're juggling a lot of things on the home front and the workplace, and just give everyone the grace that they need to do whatever they need to get done. But yeah, there are some very, very strange times, but if you kind of listen, do your best, work together, things will work themselves out.
I think that's beautifully said about grace. That is absolutely such a lovely sentiment to carry across these times. They are times that have required a lot of grace from all of us. I think that's a beautiful way to think about it. And then we have a couple more minutes and I don't see any questions. So I will ask another one, which is, as you have done so many different and interesting things over the course of your career, has how you think about success changed over that time?
For sure. I mean, when you're coming out of college, a hungry 20-something-year-old with your goal to move up the ladder as fast as possible, and that's fantastic. And in fact, that might stay with you your whole life, or it might pivot as things in your life change. I decided to go to grad school, and then, at some point, if you choose to have a family or don't choose to have a family, that also could, impact what you're doing. At times I kind of pressed the brake a little bit more because juggling things on the home front and the work front was tricky. So perhaps a job that might be a little bit easier to do is not the worst thing, right? Or, as you accelerate down the path of empty nester or retiring, the long and short of it is success can be redefined and should be redefined, and don't stay beholden to one. And don't consider yourself a failure just because you haven't done X, Y, or Z that you had decided 5-10 years from now, because you could be in just a very different spot dealing with things and your priorities may have changed, and that's okay. So wherever you're at is fine and where you should be.
Yeah, that does connect. And maybe the answer to one of the questions that has come in to the chat line, which is about a piece of advice that you would give your younger self. Is there a sort of summed up version of what you would tell yourself as the hungry 20-something?
I probably would say take even more risks, would be where I'd say. I mean, as I think back, I've never regretted doing anything, but I have regretted not doing things. So I would highly recommend just take the risk, take the leap. You will land on your feet regardless where it is, and you'll learn a hell of a lot after you do.
Yeah, take risks. It's great. And then another question is about how you measure success of your team beyond KPIs and metrics. So I guess the question here is really like, we talked about how we measure, or how you measure success of the work. How do you think about measuring success of your team?
So oftentimes I've had folks who might have been a little bit more junior, a little earlier on in their career. And for me, success is really giving them the skills and helping them gain the skills that they will need for the rest of their career. So I've been known to push folks who hate to do presentations to present. And so we sit in a room every single day, or we had sat in a room every single day practicing till they got comfortable with it, knowing that this is a life skill they should have. So in a lot of ways, it's helping them on their personal growth. What are they looking to develop? And what skills can we garner? It could be from a communication perspective. It could be, how do you present yourself from, your written communication or what have you. But so I take it, I love mentoring. I love working with folks. So I kind of take it on two levels. Yes, we're going to drive the business. We're going to drive the results, but what other skills can we grow and learn that'll benefit everyone?
Great. And another question that has come in is a little bit of a zinger. So I'm interested in your answer, which is, what marketing opportunities do you think most companies are overlooking right now?
That's a good one. In terms of what are they missing out on? Where is the world going right now? Like, what changes are here to stay?
Do you know?
Yeah, I wish I did. But what changes are here to stay and how can we capitalize on it? So, for example, early on when the pandemic came and not everyone, those who could transition to remote, wow, that was a great opportunity for Zoom and Teams. So now in the new world, what is going to be here to stay that we need to consider? So whether it be, marketing from an education perspective, right? All of these students who've been impacted in college and, younger grades, what's going to happen with them and what's going to stick, and how do we kind of max